Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think the ultimate Jedi is the one who balances the dark side, those feelings,
Mace Windu,
recognizes
man.
it in himself, and then just uses it for the light side, for the good.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? So it's crazy, the story of Mace Windu. So he has full access to the dark side, but he doesn't let the dark side overwhelm him.
Yeah,
he doesn't lose control from the dark side, right? So it's crazy how you kind of see those little things in a show like Star Wars, and you're like, man, Mace Windu, he's super positive. He's part of the Jedi, but uses the dark side, right, to accomplish what he needs to.
I read somewhere that George Lucas wanted to cast Tupac as Mace Windu.
Wow.
But when did Tupac die, do you know?
Or late 90s.
I think around the time Episode 1 was out.
Close to it.
Yeah,
Close to
so
it, yeah.
that would have been, it makes sense though, because Tupac was this kind of philosophical, I don't know, just a really amazing person. And George Lucas recognized those types of things.
Yeah.
And it may seem crazy to picture him as Mace Windu, but look at Samuel Jackson being in some of the movies he's in. Like, he's pretty like vulgar and not very kid-friendly stuff.
At
but
all.
Here he's playing a Jedi. So I could see Tupac playing Mace Windu's role. So
No, absolutely. And what I love about Mace Windu, it teaches you that every single person on the planet has a dark side.
right.
It's can they control the dark side to create positive situations, positive scenarios, positive outcomes, right? So we all have a dark side. Both of us have a dark side. Now, you piss me off for too long, I'll probably show my dark side.
Yeah, well, it's all like we're all animals at basic level. Right?
Exactly.
We need that anger to, whether it was for hunting or whatever it was, evolutionarily, right?
Exactly.
And we all have that inside of us, and we can ignore that as much as we want, but it's there.
It's there. It's definitely there,
Yeah.
right? And I was in anger management throughout high school and university, right? So people don't know. So I was doing private courses after school, all that kind of stuff for anger management. And I remember in elementary school, I was part of the anger management program for 7-8 years, just directly, right? So because of that, I'll be honest, anger management just makes you more angry. And then you get to a tipping point, you're like, okay, this is unproductive.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I was like, okay, this is unproductive. Let me change the trajectory of my thoughts and how I'm going to move. Right, so I ended up let me just take a positive outlook of life and see where this takes me.
Yeah, and then channel that, like Carl Jung talks about it, and I'm not well read, and Carl, only reason I know about his work is through Jordan Peterson. He references him a lot. As far as I can tell, it's some of the most dense psychological work of humanity.
Absolutely.
And he talks about the shadow and how you want to integrate that part of you. You want to integrate your shadow, I guess, to become a well-rounded individual. And I think George Lucas and the people who created Star Wars, they also had that kind of stuff in mind as well, those sort of teachings. I don't know Carl Jung exactly, but definitely some of the psychologists from the time, they were kind of putting those ideas into Star Wars as well. So
absolutely. And I think if people took a little bit more or paid a little bit more attention to some of those shows and some of those movies, they get some phenomenal life lessons. Right. So I have an addictive personality, man. Yeah. So when I go, I've watched The Matrix over 150 times. I've watched Star Wars countless times, right? And every single time I watch the movie, I learn something completely different, right? Because I realize as I grow as a person, my beliefs and my perspective change.
Right.
And I really found that with The Matrix, and I had to watch it so many different times, and I could tell you every single time that I watched it, right, it was a whole new perspective on what was actually happening in the nature of that movie, right? Especially with Neo being the one, Morpheus seeking and searching for the one, right? And just seeing how people are agents, man, it's crazy. Just to show you how people... have you ever read George Orwell's 1984?
No, I have not.
Phenomenal book. Probably the best book I've ever read, apart from Think and Grow Rich and Outwitting the Devil.
Okay.
George Orwell talks about something called INGSOC, English socialism, where people will actually inform and rat on themselves. Right? And in The Matrix, people become agents, and they're scared of the system. So they'll actually do whatever it takes to actually maintain threshold within the system. So they'll start ratting individuals out if they see something like Donald Trump beating taxes. No, you have to pay your taxes. It's like, bro, we're the government. If he's not paying taxes, he's probably doing something right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He's doing something right. He's employing so many people. He's creating almost a utopia for individuals, but the problem is people don't see it that way. Right? It's perspective.
It's perspective, yeah.
Right? And look at the elections going on. There's so much propaganda.
And so many low-level perspectives on it.
Oh, man.
Right? It's crazy.
Yeah, and George Orwell talks about it. It's called English socialism. So there's a phrase called ingsoc, where people are being controlled by the media and their perspectives on where the war is and who's the good and who's the bad is just completely altered, and it's actually happening to us right now.
Oh, for sure,
right? Because the election's not even over and people are celebrating.
Yeah.
Right? It's not even over. And the bigger problem with that is people, comparing socialism versus capitalism. If we're comparing those two dichotomies, we've lost. Because they're both archaic philosophies on how life should probably be. Right? Yeah. And I've expressed that openly on Instagram. And the problem was Instagram's like, okay, man, you're talking too much sense here. Let's stop you from reaching as many people as possible. They do that immediately, right? Yeah, so there's too much control because obviously it is a private entity. People need to understand that.
You see now, like, with COVID, I've had a few posts where, I don't know if it was in the hashtag or something like that, didn't write COVID, didn't write something like that, but whether it was some like health related hashtag or something, and then Instagram put up the little flag about COVID. Or no, it was crazy. It was a video, just a brief video clip of the downtown library, just kind of messing with my editing skills. And in the video, there's this brief pan. You could see the sign in the library about the COVID protocols. And it was such a brief millisecond. And Instagram picked that up from the video and then put the little banner up. For more information about COVID, visit alberta.org.
And you know what's crazy? So like some of our products, right? We use didecyl dimethyl ammonium chloride, which is a little bit better than alcohol-based disinfectants. We put that up on Instagram, and they shut it down.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? Because I realized if you're helping too many people, they don't want it. Right? So alcohol-based products are bad for the skin. Right? They're bad. They're bad for surfaces and stuff like that. But we wanted to let people know that, and I realized my stories were getting shut down.
Yeah.
I've had a few stuff that people could call bipartisan, whatever it may be, just get shut down immediately. Yeah. Right? Because they want to control the narrative, right? And they want to make sure people are following that narrative. And I realized that was happening to me every single day.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. It's unfortunate, and it's just like part of the messy system. You know what I mean? Like it just becomes hard. Like, and, like I do give Instagram some benefit of doubt, because when you say Instagram, it's not like one person. It's this whole system and different algorithms and things like that. And then, it's also the political system too. Maybe if the system wasn't so like the way it is, they wouldn't have these things now in it. You know what I mean? So there's no like one entity or one thing to blame. I think it just shows such a messy like world and system that we have.
Well, you're correct 100%, and I think the bigger problem is that I tell people there's three sides to a coin. Right?
I saw your Instagram story, and why don't you
I'll explain that. Right? So there's most people believe that there's two sides of the coin, right? They think that there's heads and tails. They're not realizing that there's the edge. Okay? So for instance, Mother Nature actually operates on the edge of the coin. So for instance, there's good and then there's bad. There's negative and positive atom, right? So Mother Nature, think about it. If trees are dying in the fall, okay, would people consider that bad? Yeah. Probably. But Mother Nature understands that sometimes you have to destroy in order to rebuild, right? So you have to live on the edge of both sides, kind of like the Mace Windu, philosophy, right? So
and is it also kind of like the yin and the yang, right? There's chaos and order, and then where you want to be. And again, this is referencing Jordan Peterson. I'm not this smart, but I just like to repeat things that I hear. He says the place you want to be and what the symbol represents is that line in the middle between them. That's where you want to be. That's kind of like the edge of the coin.
Yes, right? Exactly. And Mother Nature lies on the edge of the coin, right? So, a lot of my teachings that I tell people, we have to operate under laws of nature because just formal common law doesn't actually cover laws of nature, right? Because you see people getting killed every single day, and you see bad things happening to good people, and then you realize, hey, maybe this person's not honoring law of association.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And they ended up in a bad circumstance, but they may have been a good person. And then people will blame the system. Well, it's not the system's fault. It's the person's fault. Putting themselves in a bad circumstance.
Right. It could be both too, though.
And
right?
Of course. And you can even say yes, because it can be both, because the people at the head of the system are not understanding the laws of nature. Right? It goes back to Mother Nature will do what it has to do.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I saw a post, it was talking about how we've wrapped Mother Nature in plastic, and now we're getting wrapped in plastic. And I was laughing. I was like, man, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen, right? Because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Now people have to wear masks. People have to wearing all this gear just to be COVID free, right? And that's the problem.
Yeah. I'm going to stay on this Star Wars conversation. I was having moments like when masks first started getting heavily involved with here.
Yeah.
I was starting to think and imagine like how our fashions are going to change going forward. And I was starting to picture like, 10, 20, maybe like 50 years in the future where masks and like filtration systems, whether it be for viruses or maybe things get so polluted in the future that it's for pollutants as well, whatever it may be, right? But I was picturing like sort of like Star Wars type outfits where these masks and like filtration systems and like maybe oxygen tanks or something like that are like built into, and we're almost walking in like space suits or something.
I've definitely thought about that.
Semi-robotic sort of things, and maybe even taking it up another notch. Maybe there's like always a little IV in you, so like you're staying, I don't know, getting some nutrients or
adrenaline all
helping
the
out
time.
your mitochondria
Yeah.
right, somehow. So